What's up, guys? Today we'll be reacting to a video. Shout out to this
You guys have been asking me to cover this infection
creator.
that you call dandy worms, which is a Dandy's World infection
Shout
AU
out
created
this
by
YouTuber.
Gotcha Home here on YouTube. And while I
Yep.
wasn't convinced that
And
this
shout
AU
out
would be
him.
spooky at all because
Right
Dandy
there.
World is just too cute of a game, I have to admit that this AU is actually a lot better than I was anticipating. Now, this AU starts off with Yada and Brightney talking about a candy order that just arrived for Yada after waiting for a long time. So long that the candy has actually gone bad. And while Bright tries to get Yada to throw the candy out, stating that it could be spoiled now, Yada isn't hearing any of that, grabbing the box of goodies and then running to their room and eating a bunch of it. And as you can see here on the floor, it looks like there's worms inside of the candy or inside of the wrapper here. And after only a few minutes, we see Yada come out of her room to hang out with the other Toons, and they start to change. We see their eyes start to leak this black liquid, and then their eyes dilate. And finally, Yada loses control of herself and lunges at this little girl, almost taking a
dang.
bite out of her before we see Roger is able to grab her and restrain her. And what is scary about this is that Yada doesn't even seem to understand why she attacked the little girl, basically saying that it felt like she simply lost control of her body for a moment. But feeling like Yada needed to be punished, we see that this lady here locks her into her room for 2 weeks, which is definitely going to end poorly considering that she's infected with something. And almost immediately, we see her start to change even more, with worms starting to fester around her body. Now, after the 2-week period was up, the Toons go to release Yada, and they are greeted with a absolute monster. And as you saw in that scene, Yada wastes no time in ripping people apart or just straight up taking bites out of them. And when V and Astro get to this floor, they can see all the carnage that Yada has left behind.
Ooh,
and while a lot of people did survive, depending on how this infection spreads, we may have a lot of infected people in this room. Now, wanting to figure out what happened here, we see Astro and V go to investigate Yada's room, and they find some worms wiggling around in its black blood. And luckily, Astro is able to use his ability to pick them up, because I have a feeling that if they touch you, they may be able to actually get under your skin. And after storing these worms away for testing, we see V goes to find Sprout because they needed someone that could actually heal all the Toons who were attacked by Yada. And surprisingly, we also see Sprout kind of takes the lead here, letting everyone know that they need to get to a safe room just in case Yada is still nearby. After that, they all decide to go gather up more of the Toons that are still healthy and get them all to the safe room as well, which may prove to be a bad idea soon. After that, we see Boxton complaining to Poppy about feeling like something is crawling under their skin, and then we see Scraps complaining about her tail hurting. And finally, we see Shrimpo talking about a pain in his head. And when Cosmos sees this, he goes over to actually see if he can help. And when he unwraps the bandage, we see that the area in which Yada bit him is actually completely black and has worms crawling all around the wound. So Cosmos decides to actually do a minor operation, pulling all the worms out of Shrimp's head and then using some hydrogen peroxide to clean the wound. Which, just as a side note, this is definitely not going to be strong enough to cure whatever the heck is going on here. And we can kind of see this just by the look in Shrimp's eyes here.
Extensiones más cara de L'Oréal Paris. Pestañas tan
I'm just gonna skip
extendidas
this
que
whole
parecen
part.
estar 5 milímetros.
And just as I suspected, Shrimp takes a bite out of Cosmo's arm, but to my surprise, we see Cosmo punches him in the face, showing that he isn't going down without a fight. And even more surprising, Shrimp seems to go back to his senses, mad as heck that Cosmo hurt him in the first place. And this kind of confirms my idea that at least in the early stages of this infection, some of the characters can float in and out of like sanity. Now, if all that wasn't bad enough, we see more Toons coming into Cosmo, showing the wounds that they've received from Yada as well, and they are all festering the same way that Shrimp's was. And it is at this point that the Toons start to figure out that they are dealing with a virus of some sort, and that they will have to move the sick Toons to another floor to try and slow the spread spread of this infection. And while the scene of them being separated is kind of sad, this was definitely the smart move, even though it kind of sucks for the people getting sent away. Now, after a couple of days have passed, the Healthy Tunes decide that they need to do a supply run because they're running low on food. So a group of them head to the elevator to go to another floor. Once they get down there, they split up to look, and Glisten ends up actually running into Cosmo. And while he looks normal from a distance, once they get up close to him, it becomes clear that the infection has gotten much worse. And not only that, but we can see like spider legs coming from his back as well. The good news is that the other Tunes are able to actually find a whole crate of food and get it back to the elevator. The bad news is that when Glisten reappears, he has his bow tied around his leg, which is obviously supposed to hide the wound that he likely received from running into Cosmos, although we didn't get to see it. And since he doesn't tell anybody that he was bitten, he goes back up to the safe room, and almost immediately he takes a bite out of Flutter and then starts to make his way through some of the other Tunes as well. But luckily, before he can get to too many other Tunes, we see Gigi come through with a baseball bat and crack Glisten's face open. And while this may seem brutal, when you look at all the harm that Glisten could cause and has already caused, I think this was definitely the right call. Now, after all that, we see Flutter's brother, Flight, and he's beating himself up because he feels like he should have actually been there to watch over his sister, which makes sense when you remember that one of his lines from the game is, "Of course I miss you when we're apart. I hope you've been out of trouble without my eye on you." In order to ensure that no one else gets infected like his sister, he gives Shelly to make him a new outfit that is great for stealth so that he can actually sneak around alone when they need someone to go on supply runs. Elsewhere, we see Sprout reminiscing about Cosmo and promising to make a cure so that they can actually save him and the rest of their friends. And with the help of Brittany and Shelly, he was able to find some books to help him make a vaccine. The bad news is that some of the pages were missing, meaning that they're going to have to go down to the library floor in order to find them. And for a moment, it looks like they may actually be able to get in and out with no issues until we see Sprout's eyes go wide. And then he says that they need to hide, and then we see Scrap. And she actually looks pretty creepy here. And seeing that they don't stand a chance fighting her, Sprout and Shelly try to run back to the elevator, but before they can get there, Glisten steps into their path. And just like with Scrap, his body is elongated and his face is just a void now with one red eye looking out. But before Glisten can actually attack Sprout, Shelly jumps in the way and takes a slice across her eye. And right when it looks like our duo is caught between these two monsters, something off screen stops them from attacking. And what we see next is Gigi, who now has a axe, and also Goob. And then we get this sad scene where Goob is trying to get his sister to actually remember him, even hugging Scrap's leg at one point. But if you thought that this was going to be like a super touching, sweet moment, you're absolutely wrong. Scrap grabs him by the head and then literally rips off a chunk of it. Seeing this, Gigi uses the axe to take off Scrap's hands, saving Goob, but he still looks devastated here when honestly I can't blame him.
Plushie?
Now, at first, it looked like the group returned to the floor empty-handed, but surprisingly, Shelly was able to find the pages that they needed. And with this information, it seems that Sprout may actually have a chance to make a vaccine now. Elsewhere, we see Astro ask V to help make a list of all the missing tunes, and this list basically contains Dandy along with all the holiday tunes as well. And not want to leave all these guys hanging, Astro forms a team and goes down a few floors to try and find them. And while looking around on this new floor, Astro finds a key for this locked door, which actually gives them access to the room where the Christmas tunes are. And luckily, they all seem to be free of the infection. But while they were all talking in this room here, we see an eye pop up behind Ginger, and while she tells Rudy that she feels like somebody's watching them, he just thinks that this may be like Connie trying to scare them. And in order to prove that they are wrong, we see that Connie says that she's going to go take a look at whatever may be hiding in the dark, and while she obviously doesn't believe that there's anything there, once this eye reappears, she looks absolutely terrified and turns intangible. But since her ability only lasts 5 seconds, this creature is able to get an attack off on her. Now, oddly enough, when the crew makes it back to the elevator, we see Tisha is there and she's already infected. And after she gives us a brief story into like how she got infected, which is basically just that she got bitten by Brusha, they all go back to the safe room. Astro runs over to Sprout to see if he had any luck with a cure, but he hasn't been able to create anything yet. And seeing the axe in the corner, Tisha tells them to take her arm and hope that they'll be able to slow the spread of the virus. After that, we cut over to Bassie and we see that she's searching for supplies on another floor and looking for other tunes. And then we see this image of a centipede-like creature walking around in the shadows. Sensing that danger may be close, Bassie then goes and grabs a knife, but her reaction speed is too slow and this worm-like monster takes a bite out of her arm. And while she's able to fight this monster off kind of, we see that the infection has already started to fester in her arm. Having no choice, she makes a run for it, but quickly realizes that the worm is too fast for her, and she's forced to make a final stand. But when she stabs out at what she thinks is the monster, we see a silhouette of what looks like another toon, and then we fade to black, leaving us on a cliffhanger. Luckily, part 2 of the series is already out, so we're able to jump right back into this scene with Finn and Toodles going to find Roger. But once they actually get to his floor, they see that he's already fully corrupted, and his body is now this large blob monstrosity. And once they're in sight, Roger wastes no time trying to attack Toodles, but before he can grab her, we see this. And while it sucks that Finn got infected, at least he kept his mind long enough to tell Toodles to run. And surprisingly, she's able to actually avoid him pretty good, even making him run into a wall and break his own arms. And right when it looks like her luck may have run out, we see Gigi show up and starts to fight with Finn, but she does manage to actually take a small wound to the face, forcing Toodles to jump in and help as well. Unfortunately though, this leads to her being grabbed by this eye monster. Luckily, we see Bassie come through and cut her free before she can fall victim to whatever like mind control or hypnosis this thing was trying to do to her. And while this fight definitely didn't go great for the Toons, I love how they are like all working together to survive. In most infection AUs, it's kind of like every man for themselves and people are betraying each other. So this one is kind of cool.
¿Sabías que las toallitas limpiadoras pueden irritar tu piel sensitiva? Cámbiate a Garnier Maestro Cleansing Water All-in-One Sensitive.
And the next thing, we see Ginger running while holding Cole, and it looks like they're trying to get away from Razzle and Dazzle. And interestingly enough, it looks like only Dazzle is infected with the virus. And with that, we see Razzle fighting against Dazzle as he's trying to harm Ginger. And what surprised me even more than that was the fact that Cole actually stepped up to defend Ginger as well, biting Dazzle's arm and forcing him to release her. Unfortunately, Cole is struck down right after that. Then we see Razzle take a rock and knock Dazzle out. And for a moment, I thought that the fight was over, but then we see Razzle transform as well and grabs Ginger. But then we see my favorite character, aka Pebbles, come onto the scene. And while he does buy some time, he doesn't really stand a chance against Razzle and Dazzle. And even though he does fight hard, he ends up losing one of his eyes, and he also loses a leg. And right when it looks like Razzle is about to end our little pup, Dazzle takes matters into his own hands and takes Razzle's head clean off. And luckily, before Dazzle transforms again, we get this mysterious stranger that comes through and like shoots some drugs into him, saying that it will cure the worms. And as Dazzle passes out, we get a look at this hooded figure as he carries Ginger and Pebbles away. Now, back on the safe floor, we see a bunch of Toons getting bandaged up because they've been getting their butt kicks, if we're being honest. And then we see Sprout starts to get a team together to gather medical supplies just for like general health and also to make a cure, hopefully. And it looks like Rudy and Poppy are going to be the ones that are going to go on this mission. And everything looks fine for a while until Rudy finds this letter that says, "You must run from here quickly. Take your things and run." But instead of following those directions, Rudy decides to actually look around after Poppy says that she sees something like hiding in the shadows. And then we see Boxton. And while it's obvious that he's infected, it's actually much worse than it seems at first sight. And even though Rudy tries to run, he ends up getting clipped on the leg, but the wound seems so light that he doesn't even notice it. And Poppy didn't see him get attacked, so they both hop back on the elevator and head back to the safe room. Once they're back in safety, we see Poppy reading through some of the other notes that they gathered while on the medical floor. And this letter right here seems to give more backstory about the infection, but from Dandy's perspective. And even though this cut seems really short, it gave us two very important pieces of information. Dandy is still alive, likely, and also the humans of this world are infected with this virus as well. After that, we see Eggson, and he's feeling like he isn't pulling his weight. So he decided to go take the list of ingredients that they need to get a vaccine, and he goes on a solo mission to grab them. But while he's out here searching, he runs into Finn. And if you're like me, you probably thought that it was going to be wraps for Eggson. But to my surprise, he just takes his cane and gives Finn a good whacking, and then he runs off, remembering the beating that he got earlier from Gigi. After that, Eggson doesn't have any issues finding all the ingredients until he runs into Connie, who he didn't realize was infected. The fear of seeing her and the fact that he was trying to run away to get back to the elevator basically made his heart rate spike, and he ends up having a heart attack before he can make it back. And while his death definitely does suck, at least he managed to get all the ingredients and they're right in front of the elevator, so hopefully his friends will just be able to grab them and get away. So even though Exen is gone, at least he put in some work for the team before he went out. Can we get an Exen is the GOAT in the comments?
No.
Now back upstairs, we see some commotion break out, and it turns out that Rudy has finally turned.
I hate the shit.
Luckily, Astro is there to restrain his arms, which allows Sprout to give him a sedative, but not before he gets kicked in the face. And I think that it's this encounter that really solidified the fact that these toons need to find a cure fast, or they're going to continue to get like picked off one by one. And with this knowledge, we see Sprout, V, and Brightney head out, with Sprout going to find Dandy and the other two going to gather vaccine supplies. After that, we cut over to Ginger, who seems to be hooked up to some kind of IV, and we also see that Pebbles is still alive as well. And then we see that the hooded figure is still here and reveals themselves to be none other than Dandy. And even though they look a bit beat up, they are clean of the worms, which is the most important thing. And even better, it seems like Dandy has figured out how to make a cure. But before we can learn more information, they hear this banging at the door, which prompts Dandy to grab a baseball bat so that he can give whoever this intruder is the business. But it turns out that our intruder was actually Sprout. And even though he ends up getting knocked out, he seems to be able to bounce back pretty good. And this is where we see Dandy confirms that he knows how to make a vaccine for this infection, but he's still missing some of the vital ingredients. And with this understanding, Sprout tells Dandy to come back with him to the safe room. And just as a side note, I love how happy Dandy looks here, because he finally actually has other survivors to be around. And I also like that, Pebble survived as well. These two look adorable. Now, almost as soon as Sprout gets back to the safe room, we see V arrive, but she's beat up and infected. And to make matters worse, it looks like Brightney was infected by Connie. And not wanting to waste any time, Sprout tells Dandy to start making a cure, hoping that they can actually save V. And while it does take about 2 days, Dandy and Sprout are able to make a vaccine that will fully cure the infection. Or at least that's the hope. But in order to be sure, they'll need to actually test the vaccine on somebody. But thinking quickly, V comes up with an idea to take the worms out of the severed arms of Scrap and test the vaccine directly on the worms. And luckily, the vaccine seems to kill the worms outright. Next, we cut back over to Bobbit, and she is still hiding / running for her life, trying to avoid Connie. But she ends up slipping and being run down by this monstrosity.
Do real quick headbutt. Oh wait, you're the last.
Before I can snap her head off, we see Dazzle is back, and he's doing his best to protect her, although a 2v1 is obviously pushing his limits. But before things can really go south, we see Dandy and Astro arrive on the scene and start giving out antidotes. But the fighting doesn't stop there. We see that Dandy ends up getting his hand chopped off, and Astro has to use most of his magic to keep Dazzle from being overwhelmed. And even Bobbit has to jump into the fight to make sure that he doesn't go down.
Doesn't like showing sports, so if I was him, I would flex like shit crazy.
And surprisingly, they all make it back alive, although they are beat the heck up. After saving Bobbit and giving the toons on that floor the vaccine, Sprout learns that some of the infected people can't be saved even if you give them the vaccine. And the reason behind that is simply because their bodies have been morphed or elongated too much, so now they just can't go back to normal. So basically, the best that they can do for some people is just get the worms out of their body and let them have a peaceful death. With this new understanding, we see the healthy toons get into teams and they start to go floor by floor, basically trying to get rid of the infected. The first toon we see here is Scrap, and at first I thought that she was going to be too far gone to save, but it seems like they're actually able to get to her in time. Next, we see V and Tisha found Brightney, and she was very easy to save because she wasn't that deep into the infection yet. Next, we see Finn, and to nobody's surprise, this guy was way too far gone to save. And seeing this, Vivi basically just took the baseball bat and finished them off. After that, we flop back over to Flight and Basie, and they are looking for Shrimpo. And when we see him, he seems to have Coco in his jaws. And seeing that he's distracted, they try to use this moment to actually sneak up behind him, but Flight ends up stepping on this rapper, alerting him, and then almost losing an eye. And being left with no other options, we then see Bass jump in with her knife and basically guts this poor guy. And even though they still end up giving him the vaccine, I'm pretty sure there's no way they were going to save Shrimpo at this point. He is far too gone. And then we finally see Astro facing off against Roger, and he's able to use his ability to send the vaccine right over to him and even boxing after, showcasing just how powerful Astro's ability is in this AU. Being able to administer the vaccine from a distance is kind of OP. Next, we see all the survivors back together, and they're making a plan to escape this city, not wanting to be in this area any longer. Because even though they've cured most of the people, there still may be worms crawling around, and also there's still some infected that they haven't found. And to make sure that they just stomp out this infection altogether, they have decided to burn this whole place to the ground and take the train out of town. And this is actually a really smart idea because they don't want the infection to actually get out to the general population. And also when you add on top of that none of them probably want to face off against Yada after what she did in the beginning of the AU, this is probably the safest option. Now while the Toons are pouring gas and getting ready to leave, we see more infected pop up, but now that they're all together, they're able to fight them off pretty easily.
Yeah, fight them off. Who is that? Oh! Okay, that knife is the goat of this series.
And while it looks like they're all gonna make it out of here alive, we then see Yada pull back up finally, and she takes out Flight immediately, biting him clean in half. Sprout then goes to try to issue the vaccine to Yada, but gets his arm bitten off in the process. And seeing that this is a hopeless situation, Sprout takes out his rifle and sets himself and Yada. Infected humans running around. And this is actually a callback to Dandy's memory when he speaks about one of the infected actually attacking that human lady. It seems that she went outside and actually infected other people as well. And feeling like they're not able to do much about this situation, the Toons leave the vaccine on the outskirts of the city and leave the humans to burn or escape, stating that it's no longer their problem. And while this does seem kind of cold-hearted, when you think about it, like the city's literally on fire and there's basically zombies running around. Walking away from the situation is probably for the best. All in all, I thought this AU was much better than I was expecting, and I like the fact that a bunch of people actually survived at the end, although I wouldn't call it like a happy ending, especially considering that this whole city's on fire. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video on the screen here, subscribe today to become a member of the Ors Force, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.
Guys, I might make a reaction channel. But guys, that's it for today. If you like this type of content, please leave a like and subscribe. I never usually ask. No, that's for a different day.